Now this is a lovely little Aqua 1 tank that's just currently got some seahorses in it, and we very, very regularly get people ringing us and telling us that the tank is leaking. But it's very, very rare that these tanks ever leak. The first most important thing is to make sure that the tank is not on a slope like this one. See the way you've got like a clear centimetre there and almost nothing there. Now having a tank on a lean like this one is the best way for the tank to leak. The reason being is that the water goes up onto the surface with condensation, and because it's on a lean, it means that the water's going to start dribbling that way. And when you've got water dribbling that way, what happens is it hits the sides and it can come out and go over the edge. The thing that's most tricky about these tanks is this cover, because you assume that there's silicone underneath this cover to stop the water coming out underneath, but there's actually not. There's a dob of silicone there and a dob of silicone over here. So this little area here can act like a channel like that. So the water can actually go up over the glass and around, hugged by the channel, which actually creates a siphon. And where that usually happens is in the back corner right here. So most of the time when people say these tanks leak, they say that they leak from the front corner. But the reality is, most of the time, the water's actually travelling over the edge here, going down here, going down there, going across the bottom, and then coming out. The other thing is that if you do fix the leak, so it's no longer leaking, it's surprising how long it takes for all the water to come out of the bottom, even once you've fixed the problem. The other main, very common issue is that these filters rely on gravity putting the water back into the aquarium again. And very often, I'll look into these filters and they are so dirty, and they've got one sheet across here, that the water comes up on here, it banks up, because it's so dirty the water cannot go back down. So therefore the water either goes over and out, there, or over this side. But if these filters are dirty, the water cannot make it back down into the aquarium again, down through that hole, or down through the spray bar at the front. The water actually clogs up and goes over the back. So the other way that these tanks often leak too is if you have an air stone with the bubbles, and you have the bubbles coming up, and the bubbles are popping water all over the surface, which is causing the water to run. And when the water runs, it once again hits the coping of the tank, and then it goes out. And once it goes out a bit, it just keeps siphoning out. And water can actually siphon up, because what happens is the outer shell of the water creates a laminar layer, which means it's got high surface tension. Then the water inside of that dribble can actually flow. So if you find these tanks are leaking, the first thing you need to do is lower the water level a little bit, and then you need to clean the whole inside to make sure there's no salt or no buildup in the bottom of the tank that's going to suck the water through. So clean it all around here. Drop the water just a little bit, so like a centimetre or a bit more. Give the filter a good clean. Make sure the tank is level, and then you'll almost never have a problem with leaking. If you are convinced that it is leaking, the next thing you need to do is arrange an esky or something, or a foam box, to get the water out of the tank into the foam box. You can put your animals, your fish into the foam box and add an aerator to it. Then you're going to get the tank, put it on a flat surface, on some newspaper, then fill the tank up on the newspaper, and then very quickly you'll see where the leak is if it's on newspaper. Then you just circle that with a texter so people know where the leak is. And generally, if it is leaking from the silicone, see the colour of the silicone, you can usually see a difference in colour. The silicone is usually very white where it's leaking. So if you look down the silicone seal and you see it's all the same colour, it's unlikely to be leaking. If one of its bits very white, it's much more likely to be leaking. So anyway, I hope that helps. So once again, precaution is best. Keeping your filters clean, keeping your tank clean, keeping your your tank level are some of the keys to making sure that these top filters don't make it look like your tank's leaking, because as I said, we very regularly get people tell us that our tanks are leaking, these tanks are leaking, and they very rarely do leak. And that's talking for the Aqua 1 brand, and that's not talking for all of the other similar brands that are out there.